Good afternoon, LinkedIn. We are live. This is actually our 7th LinkedIn Live Recruitment Hacks show. And I am joined by Ben and John, who are both experts in pricing and also in helping you win and retain high value clients. So thank you so much, both of you, to joining us. We'll go ahead and hopefully things will pick up shortly. What I'd love you to do is introduce yourselves to the audience and just give us a sense of what you're going to be talking about today. As I said, we're looking at how we optimize service, how we look at the offerings that we use to win and retain high value clients. And I think this is an area, Ben and John, that is, I mean, you're the experts, but it's an area that's up. We've just had our first comment, which is great. So we are definitely live. That's the main thing. So sorry, going back to what I was saying, obviously you're experts in this area, but this is a topic that affects every desk and every recruitment business right now. And it's something that where we've had a lot of conversation in Rowella James about, and I know this is something that John will talk about a lot, just changing something by 1% actually adds 10% more to your bottom line. And we actually did this exercise within our business the other day just to look at what that would look like. And I know you'll talk about it in a bit more detail shortly. Hi, Jamie. Hi, Francesca. Thank you for joining us today. So what I'm going to say to everyone who is watching us, because I know everybody doesn't necessarily put a comment in the chat box. If you have any questions, please do put a comment in the chat box with a Q at the beginning, and we'll try and answer some questions at the end. Alternatively, if you'd like a one-to-one with either Ben or John, they are both offering a free consultation to anyone who's watching us today or who watches the replay, who perhaps would like a little bit more of a deep dive into looking at pricing and how to maximize those relationships that you do have with your existing clients. So we'll get straight in. John, do you want to introduce yourself first? And then and Ben can then tell us a little bit more about himself.
Good stuff. Yeah, hi, Rowella. Thanks for inviting us on, and great to be here with Ben. So I'm a pricing specialist. There aren't a huge number of us, but as you've already said, pricing is so important. You do the calculations, improving your rate, let's say your perm rate, by 1 percentage point. So going from 17% average to 18% average. If you calculate the difference that makes to your revenue, but more excitingly, your profit, if you're a business owner,
yes,
it's huge.
And commission, if you're a consultant.
And commission. I'm assuming consultants are always thinking about the commission, so that goes without saying. So yeah, what I help recruiters do is move away from the kind of traditional pricing model that recruiters have used for decades. So using a pricing model that's been proven in other B2C, B2B industries. And by doing that, that helps you increase your fees, creating that impact. But it does it in a way that you don't need to just go to your client and say, right, I'm charging you more. You package your services in the right way so that the client can choose to pay you more, and you're talking about value and service. And off the back of that, if they're valuing what you do, then it's much easier for you to talk about engaging them, exclusive, retained, and things like that.
Fantastic. And Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Rowella. Hi, John. Hi, everybody watching. I have developed the Maximum Value Playbook, which is a recruiter's way to get ultimate commitment and ultimate spend out of every client. So what we do with the playbook has 6 clear steps, and they're all supported with actionable strategies that help you move all of your relationships with clients forward. So as a consultant, at times I felt that some of my relationships maybe hit a plateau, or I wasn't getting as much commitment or spend from my clients as I'd like. In fact, there's some really interesting data that we might get into around this that I've been working with Wendy McDougall from Firefish on.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and it just paints a picture that there's a lot of things that recruiters can be doing to increase their revenue without necessarily or before they start winning new clients. And also that process really helps them win new business in a much more effective and high quality kind of way.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for both of you for being here. So John, let's start with you, because I think what you're going to talk about is really going to resonate with a lot of consultants, as well as business owners out there at the moment, who perhaps, because we're coming out of a difficult market, there might be a bit of price pressure. And sometimes, getting your clients around the fact that they may have a false perception that maybe you need roles when you could be inundated with roles at the moment, and you're looking to put your prices up. How do we go about approaching that? If we're having that conversation with a new client or an existing business, how do we go about having that? It's an awkward conversation at the best of times, even in a good relationship. Where do we start?
Yeah, you're right. It can be an awkward conversation. And I think with recruiters, what we generally do is we get to the price and the negotiation too quickly. So too much of the conversation is around price and negotiation. So we often say, okay, you've got a perm role, for example. I can fill that at 25%. And really you're inviting the client in at that moment, at the price point.
Yes.
Whereas if we can say, okay, you've got a perm role, there are a few different approaches I could take to fill this for you. Let's talk about what you need in this situation. Then the conversation is around what services they need, what they value from you as a recruiter. And different clients value different things, and clients value different things for different roles. So by having that conversation and waiting and having the price conversation later, yeah, we're good consultants. We're good at selling. We're good at listening for pain points. So spending more time learning about the client and what they need in that moment. Then when you do get to the price, you say, okay, it's going to cost this much. It's an easier conversation. The client is already bought in.
Okay.
So what I do is try and take recruiters away from just saying, I can recruit, to having a good, better, best set of solutions. So some people call it productization, but the idea is you've got 3 ways you can work with your client on every role.
I love this. Talk us through this. I love it.
Cool. So that you're always doing the job. So if they need a role filled that is perm, each of those approaches will fill the role. But it's what service do they need around that? Do they want the first class red carpet approach? Do they need your support with interviewing or whatever stage of the process? Or actually, do they say, look, they're pretty confident in their own approach, and they say, look, we just need your support in these areas. And actually, when you have those conversations with clients, different clients tell you different things. So to try and go in with a single price and say it's 25% every time, it is an awkward conversation. If you have that conversation around service first and give them the choice of what they pay you, which approach you take, but of course what they pay you as well, then you're not pushing them into a price. You're saying, look, if you want a top level service, red carpet approach, that's on the table, that's there for you. It costs more. If you want other options, they have their price points.
One of the things I find quite... Oh, sorry, Ben. I'll just quickly say my piece and then please do step in. Now I've lost the train of thought. Ben, you go. I'll remember what I was saying.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, it also, that piece really chimes with my approach and some work that we do around value propositions, which is helping consultants articulate where they come into the conversation from the perspective of not just I specialize in filling roles or I specialize in placing candidates, but actually I specialize in helping business leaders like you get better results every time they recruit. And then talking about what those results are. So not just the outcome of making the hire, but the result of reducing time to hire, increasing quality of hire, and potentially also reducing cost of hire or adding value through insights that maybe support the business's talent strategy in a more holistic way as well. So if you come at this with a conversation around value from the start, you can create that conversation around different types of outcome, different types of results that then tie really nicely to the good, better, best pricing sort of approach.
And it's almost like you're giving them a bespoke service, John. from the sound of it. Is that what we should be doing, giving everyone a different service every single time?
I think the risk of going in with a bespoke service sounds great, especially if you're a high value consultant, you're a consultant. Yeah. But in reality, some people mistake bespoke for going in and saying to a client, what do you want to do? And we are the experts. We should be guiding them. If you go in and say, there are 3 proven ways that I am confident I can fill this role, let's talk about what you need from me. And then
that wording is very important. Yeah.
So you're not going in and saying, tell me what you want me to do. You're going in and saying, there are 3 ways to do this. Let's talk about the best way for you. So you're in control, you're guiding, but the client makes the choice and therefore leads themselves to the price, as we're talking about price.
Yeah, no, that's great. What about when clients start sort of saying, well, I'm being charged this by so-and-so, so I need you to match this price? I mean, that comes up huge amounts. I know not just now, but in my previous past, when I worked for a high street recruitment consultancy, we had that all the time. How do they manage that particular objection? I
think the first point is don't give up at that point. Okay. I think a lot of people focus on getting the job on. It's more important to take a minute to prove your value rather than just get the job on. So let's say if they said 15% or 12% or whatever. Also, it's awkward to say this, but don't always trust your client.
That's true.
They're paying everyone else.
Yeah.
Come on.
You know, if I was recruiting for someone, I know that one tactic that works is if I talk to a good recruiter and tell them, oh, everyone else is doing it for 10%, I've got a pretty good chance of getting that recruiter to work at 10%.
Yeah.
Now, let's assume most clients are kosher, but that can happen. The other thing is, the more you focus on value and demand and breaking down, as to what Ben was saying, what value are you creating? Then that helps you differentiate from your competitor. I mean, the good news in one respect is, you know that most recruiters are going to have gone in and said, oh, I can do that role for you at 25%. The client has said, do it at 15%, and they've said, sure. So actually, if you go in and spend a few minutes talking about value, understanding their pain points, and coming across as more of an expert, even if you get the client to agree 16% to you or 16.5% to you, to come back to our first point, Ruella, you've done the maths. Over time, you know what that difference is going to make to your revenue profit bonus. Yeah.
How do you go if you've got an existing client? I saw it's on topic but slightly off topic, but personal interest here. Let's say you have had fees for some time, and I heard you on a Firefish, their crowdcast, where we were talking about some clients haven't changed their terms for a considerable amount of time. We're completely guilty of that. Obviously, our costs are going through the roof. We're bringing in more resources to help clients find the right people. How do you go about having that conversation when that 1% might not mean a lot to them? It's going to mean much more to you, but in their head, their perception is that's still too much. How do you get around that when you're trying to increase those fees? Either of you, interested to hear your feedback.
Yeah, I'll go first, but I'm interested to hear what Ben says as well. I would, I mean, the last thing I want to do is tell salespeople to go in, sit in front of their client and say, you must pay me more. That is a horrible experience for anyone. I've had to do it. It's not nice. It's not nice for the client either. To bring it back to what we were talking about earlier, if you go in and say, oh, we've got a new approach, or we've put together some new services, here's what we're doing. And you can include in that the fact that they're a valued client. So you can give them something special, but you can introduce new services. You can have a broader discussion around value. And actually, it's likely that they will join that conversation around value and say, oh, we would like that. Or, yeah, if you could do a little bit more of that, that would be great for us. And then you've got them into a conversation. They're saying, we would like more from you. We like what you're doing. And then you put the prices at the bottom. Maybe you give them a little bit of a discount off your new client rate. So you can shift them And again, giving them the choice to upsell themselves
Yes.
is much more powerful and much more pleasant than going in and saying, hey, I know it was 15%, but now I want 16%.
Okay, thank you. Ben, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I'd 100% agree with John's approach there. The thing that I would add is that if the recruiters that are watching this aren't doing this already, having a regular business review with your clients, a regular service review with your clients, and that's going to be dependent on the volume with which they recruit. But when you sit down with your client and you do all the stuff that John said, but you frame it from the perspective of what the client wants more of. So let's say I've been working with a business for a while. I sit down with them and I say, great. So look, when we first started talking, I told you I specialize in helping businesses get better results every time they recruit. And those results we typically look at are the amount of time it takes to hire, the cost of your hiring, but also the quality of the people you bring in. Let's look back at the last 3 months. Let's look back at the last 6 months. Let's look back at the last 12 months and see how we did in each one of those areas, how happy or how confident you are with the results you've got in each one of those areas. So now we're looking to identify where the client is happiest and perhaps where there's some ground for us to make up. And perhaps, as is often the case, let's use time as an example. The client says, look, actually time to hire, we want to see what we can do to improve that. Okay, cool. Let me share some ideas with you, things we do with other businesses or that have worked for other organizations we support. And if those work for you, I'd be happy to put a package together next time you're recruiting that gives you a little bit more of what you want than what we've done so far. And then we can link that back to a slightly different priced offering.
Yeah. And I know, obviously, we were sort of joking about this behind the scenes because we've all been in the meetings with elite leaders and we have a sort of strategy that we try and follow within that group, which we call LEAP. But we kind of shortened it down to sort of landing a client and expanding that value within the client. Moving on to what you were talking to me about, or what we've been talking about behind the scenes, Ben. What is the best way? I mean, you've said something there that I just immediately thought, oh my goodness, we don't do this enough. We don't actually sit down with our clients and go through with them how they are feeling about our service. We just perceive we've made a placement, there's an invoice, they're happy, the candidate's gone through their guarantee period, there are no issues, that we've done a great job. But we all know there's just so much more to it than that. And I know you have a strategy, I think you call it a sort of a sat-nav approach to how we make sure we're maximizing those client relationships. And I think it often starts with that, communicating with them about how well we've done or how we can improve or what else we can add. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, certainly. This is one of my favorite topics, and it's something that is so powerful when recruiters start really tapping into it. Now, I know as a recruiter, there are several reasons why maybe we don't typically go out and have those service-based conversations or those feedback type conversations with our clients as much as we might. First of all, we don't want to bother them. We've made a placement. They paid the fee. If they weren't happy, they'd have told us. Right?
Yeah.
Except sometimes they may have a small niggle that they're telling somebody else about. Maybe they're telling your competitors about that creates an opportunity for that competitor to displace you. Or maybe they're telling their friends about it, or they're telling their colleagues about it. Working with this agency was great, they placed a role, but actually I wish they hadn't done that all the time. Something you never quite find out about because it never comes to the top of their list. And they don't want to make you sweat. They still want to keep the relationship, but it's a niggle that you can work on. And that is a really useful tool for us to create an opportunity to upsell or even cross-sell. Because if you've got something your client is slightly dissatisfied by, we can work on that. We can put a solution to it. And we maybe are able to ask for a little bit more investment or maybe a little bit more commitment from them in return. Another reason we don't ask for feedback is we know, we think it's all okay, and actually that it's good news. But when you start those feedback conversations, it's great to hear that good news. It's not just a case of asking the client and say, "Oh, rub my belly," tell me how great I am. It's a specific process. We're going to have a conversation that we're going to own that says, "Okay, you were happy with what we did, so." What was it that we did that was good? What did you like? And then we can get that in a video testimonial or a written testimonial. There's a process for that. And we can then close by saying, so you told me that we did a good job for you. Out of interest, who else do you know who finds recruiting a bit of a pain in the ass? You know, who else do you know whose experience of recruiting potentially could be better? So we're looking at that name-gathering piece to then lead into introductions. So there's so much that stems from that one conversation around, actually, compared to your expectations, how did we do? There's so much to learn. There's so much to win. And there's also potentially, if need be, so much we can do to solve.
And in a way, you're creating new business. I love that. Such a clever question you asked at the end. You're creating new business because obviously people are in networks like us. They're in networks, they're chatting, they're getting referrals. I referred someone to my client the other day who I knew who could do a particular thing. I mean, I just think we forget the power of that. And particularly during these times, if you think about it, we've been collaborating more with our competitors, with each other, more than ever. So that's a really clever question there, Ben. Thank you. I just want to go back and ask John something. There's something that's just popped in my head. Do you think this model that we have of charging a percentage of a candidate's salary is the way in which we will see recruitment happening? You know, that you hear about fixed fees, you hear about people working different sort of partnership arrangements. Do you think where this model that we have is the right model based on your experience of looking outside to see what people do in other industries? Because I know you do a lot of that. What's your thought there?
Yeah, I think specifically on the percentage of salary, we're lucky because if you think about it, salaries go up by a few percent a year. Yeah, sometimes more, sometimes less. So what we haven't had to do is go to our clients and say our fees are going up.
Yeah.
So if you think you're a lawyer and you're charging £100 an hour or whatever, at some point you're going to have to make that £110 an hour, £120 an hour. Whereas we don't need to do that. So I think we should enjoy and celebrate the fact that we can avoid that. What doesn't work is when we say, oh yeah, if the salary is £39,500, I'll charge you 20%. If you pay them £500 more, it's 25%. So there's a couple of £1,000 difference in the fee depending on whether you're paying someone there or there. So it's worth looking at it as a whole. Some of it just isn't logical, and that's why I take people into talking about services and what they want. But then when you price those services, doing it on a percentage actually works quite nicely.
Okay. And then another question I have for you, John. So I'm just thinking about some of the things that we hear. We often agree a price, and then a client comes back to you and you think everything's sorted, and then they say, I want to change the rebate, I want to change the payment terms. Do you believe, and in fact I'm interested to hear your view, but I'll just tell you how we were taught many years ago was you don't negotiate on both. Are there situations in which you should? What are your thoughts on that? Either of you, again, I'd just be keen, because you think you've got it sorted and then something else pops in and you've already negotiated on the price and you wish perhaps you hadn't done it because they then want a hell of a lot more after that too. Yeah,
I think for me, making those things a feature, I mean, I think we all think, oh, well, we've got to have a rebate, we've got to have a whatever else, payment term. But we hide it at the back, and then if it gets mentioned or noticed sometimes, then it comes back to bite us once we've set the price. Actually, if those are good things, if we're offering extended payment terms and we know the clients could value it, then let's put that in our services. If we're offering guarantee periods, 6-month guarantee period on placing a candidate, that's huge. Don't stick it in terms, stick it in your service. And again, when you've got different types of service, of course, naturally a longer guarantee fits with that idea of a red carpet service. You're saying, we're here with you, we're working in partnership with you, you're getting the best service. And it makes, again, there's a logic to saying, okay, if you choose one of our slightly lighter services, you get less of a rebate or shorter payment terms, just because it makes sense.
So let's go back to them choosing. You can adjust this and say, if you want that, then that's going to happen.
Yeah, and then because you've had all of those conversations about what they value up front, then you've set expectations. So when you come to agree price, they know if they've chosen the cheapest of your 3 prices, maybe negotiated slightly, then if they come back to you and say, oh, we want a lot more, you say, we've had this discussion with respect. You didn't choose the middle option. You didn't choose the red carpet option. You chose the cheapest option. We can have that conversation again. You can upsell yourselves. That's fine. Again, it's your choice. But what I can't do is just completely superpower our cheaper option.
Do you know what? Do you know what's powerful about that? What you're saying there, John, is having the confidence really to put it all out there on the table. Don't try and hide anything. And I think it's and I know you do teach this as well, is giving consultants the confidence and clients the confidence to actually bring all this to the fore right from the beginning, when actually we're sort of, I've just done this with a client today. Thankfully, I've been around for a long time, so it's something I feel confident about talking about. But I, for people who are fairly new in recruitment, you take the spec, you've added value, you've commented, you've given them some advice. You get to that final conversation where you've got to bring up the price. And what you're basically saying is throw it all out there, get your cards on the table, discuss each element, don't hide anything, so that they know exactly what that's going to look like, and then there are no nasty surprises later on. I like that. I like that.
Don't ever surprise a client. One of the things, just picking up, I think Ben's probably got some stuff to say on confidence as well, but I was lucky enough to do quite a bit of market research when I was at Reed and had a bit of budget. The things clients value most when they're choosing a recruiter to work with is confidence. They will pay more if you are confident, if you come across confident in your services, confident in their services, but also in your price, and saying, I can work with you there.
Yeah, and this is, as you say, John, like that confidence piece is really, really key, but it also ties back to the previous piece around your understanding and talking about value and understanding and communicating your value offering. Because if you can do that, what you get to do with a client is, in advance of their next hire, put a kind of a service level agreement. So let's say we've been through a hire or a period of hiring with a client, we can say, look, these are results we got, this is what you want to do more of next time, this is how we'll deliver it. And that becomes a written document. It doesn't need to be a huge piece, but one side of A4 and a PDF that says this is the steps we're going to take as we go through that process next time you hire. Your client's got confidence. Effectively, it's like an insurance policy. Like, when I took out home insurance, we moved recently, as you know. When we took out our home insurance, our contents insurance, we got sent a big file of all the things that were, the electronic file of all the things that were covered in that insurance policy. I'll be honest, I haven't read it line by line. It sits there. I know it's there. The confidence I get is from knowing that document exists. If I hadn't been sent that, but I'd paid for the insurance policy, I'd be thinking something was a bit dodgy, right? And yet, as recruiters, we typically send our client nothing that documents the steps we're going to take. Imagine taking a brief and not sending a follow-up email to the client. The client sat there thinking, well, I think they're going to deliver the candidates in the time frame they said, but I don't really know what they're doing. So by providing that email summary of what the next actions you're going to take, the client's left with much more confidence, and actually you're far more likely then that the client won't decide at the end of the day, I'm going to call a couple of agencies, or worse, receive calls from agencies chasing that job advert and say, well, why not? Because, Ben said he was going to do a great job on it, but at the moment, I've got nothing. I don't see anything until I receive the CVs. So making sure that we're keeping that confidence high from job brief to delivery of CVs, or even in advance with an SLA, is a really important part of the.
I like that.
Really useful.
Ben, I know you. Oh, sorry. Go.
I was just going to say, I love that point. I always think, what does the hiring manager, or what does your client say to their boss? So in the case, if the boss comes
Excellent.
and says, "Hey, how's hiring your new superstar going?" And you go, "Oh yeah, I've got a good agency on." They say, "Oh, what are they doing?" And you're like, "Hang on, they told me some things. Hang on, I think I can remember." Or you've got that document. They say, "Oh look, here, 3 things. Boom, boom, boom."
Yeah,
I love it.
You.
And this is a lovely way to turn a contingent commitment into an exclusive one as well. So there's a bit of a word track that I use with this, Ruella. But basically, what you'd say to a client is, okay, look, this is what I'm going to do in the next hour. I'm going to go out to the typical pool of candidates, or the pool of candidates we've spoken to most recently about this role. We're just going to benchmark the kind of offering and the sort of role, the skill set you're looking for against that initial pool, those initial candidates that come to mind. And what I'll do at the end of that hour is come back to you with any frequently asked questions that I'm getting from the candidates and a couple of proposed profiles. They're probably going to be anonymized because the candidate's going to want to think about it. But at the end of that hour, you can then decide what you want to do, whether you want to leave the role with us exclusively or whether you'd rather consider your options and maybe wait for a few other things to play out. I'm not going to specifically say maybe you want to go to a couple of other agencies, but what I will say is you might want to consider your options at that point. So we've got them locked in for exclusivity for an hour. And we're going to go back and we're going to make that conversation when we go back with the FAQs, with the anonymized profiles, so suited to them and so detailed and so kind of compelling. That messaging is going to be so compelling that we then say, okay, look, what we're going to do, we'll keep rolling on this. I've got a few other people to come back to me. Give me to the end of the day. I'll give you a call first thing tomorrow morning, and we'll have an overview from there and see where we're going to go. Whether at that stage we're ready to set up interviews or whether we need a further 24 hours before we're in position to do that. And what you're doing is you're just nudging that along the way, rather than asking for exclusivity for the whole assignment all the way through. We're going for a little window of time, giving your confidence, giving your clients confidence and a snapshot of what's happening at every stage.
I love it. It's all about almost taking a breath. Both of you are saying, take a breath, don't rush. You've got time, show that value, come up with that sort of slightly, well, not bespoke, but you've got 3 options is what John is saying. I love all of this. It's fantastic. Ben, I want to ask you a question before we go, because we can't assume at the moment that everyone's in a good place. I know in recruitment to recruitment where I'm at, we are superbly busy. We have incredible roles, and all we're thinking about right now is resourcing and finding great talent. But, let's not lie. There are sectors out there who are still suffering badly, or it's taking time to come back to perhaps the levels that they were. What's your advice for consultants out there or business leaders out there who are struggling with this new business part? And I know you've taught loads of people at Venn, where we placed lots of people in there from them they started, and it was all about new business development. So what are some tips or advice you can give people who are struggling right now on that new business piece?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I'm speaking to people frequently, and it's you're absolutely right. It's for lots of people, it's a really tricky market at the moment. Lots of people are busy, which is good. Although there's an opportunity in that busyness to be more selective, but some people haven't got that. What I say, what the lens that I use with new business development is really, how does a recruiter right now differentiate? How do you create a really compelling value proposition that means that when your clients or when your prospects are looking to hire, you are front of mind? Now, typically, historically, being front of mind meant calling that person once a fortnight and just getting your name in front of them, or sending out candidate of the week or the rest of it. The current view is that actually with multi-channel and people just receiving so much more sales messaging all the time, it's even more difficult to cut through with that. Interestingly, from the business leaders that I speak to, they say they get much more noise through LinkedIn and even email than they do on the phone. So far from cold calling being dead, I think now is a great time to get on the phone if you've got the right messaging. And the value proposition that I talk with my clients about is a 3-dimensional value proposition. You've got your product, your candidates, your best candidates, and lots of us were brought up on the idea of selling your best candidate as being your best way in to your client.
Yeah.
The problem is, clients right now aren't sat there thinking, oh God, I'm never going to be able to find somebody for this role, right? They typically over-index or are over-optimistic about their ability to find somebody for the role. They're under-optimistic about, or what they don't believe they can do, is find a decent recruiter who's going to do a really good job for them. So what we need to do is position ourselves as someone who can provide a service. And recruiter service is really typically articulated in 3 ways: time to hire, cost to hire, quality of hire. Get those 3 things right and get those 3 things in your communication. That's great. Back them up with data and statistics is important, because saying I save you time never really sold anything, but telling your client I saved your biggest competitor 33% on their average time to hire for their mid-level management hires who are helping grow their business at the moment, that becomes a compelling piece. And then the additional level is, what do you do when your client says, we're not hiring right now? And there's loads of stuff out there about creating inbound leads. And I know that you did live with Amelia and Sean from Clout and Hoxo, respectively. And inbound is great. But in order to create that, I think you've got to have some insight that you're prepared to share, some information that you're sharing on the market. And that comes from listening to your clients. So sure, sell your product, fine, but let your client know why you're different through your service and through your time to hire, cost to hire, quality of hire. And then add in that 3rd level, which is insight, stuff that your clients find interesting, and have the conversations with them to work out what that is.
Yeah. Ben, you said you might have some interesting stats from Firefish, some interesting information. Are you happy to share that?
Yeah, so we're working on the data at the moment. And the reason that I reached out to Wendy to have the conversation is there's 2 pieces of data that I've been aware of for a while. The first one is that recruitment businesses typically lose 50% of their clients year on year. So that would mean that let's go back pre-COVID, let's go back to 2019. Typically only 50% of the clients you build in 2018 would you have built in 2019. So we're not retaining clients very well. Now, you might say, well, that's because they weren't hiring in that second year. However, I suspect that someone in their organization was. And so maybe we need to get better at cross-selling and really developing relationships across the organization, or maybe upselling and hiring at more senior levels within the organization. I suspect that we could have retained that client if we'd done those things. The other piece of data is that typically recruiters only secure 30% of their clients' potential spend. And that's really a really interesting piece. That's where John comes in with the pricing. If you can charge a little bit more, you're getting more than 30%. If you can fill more of their roles, you're going to get more than that 30%. If you can do less stuff on a contingent basis, you're going to get more than that 30%. So as I say, the maximum value playbook, the piece that I work with clients on, is all designed to find the strategies that will help them do that.
Super. So John, your top tip before we finish today for anyone who's looking to show their clients that they're adding value through their offering, looking at different models, what would be your top tip right now, with us coming out of this sort of COVID time, hopefully to better times ahead? Anything you'd like to leave us with? Final thoughts?
I think the concept, value is so key, but the concept that works so well is giving clients a choice. So rather than telling them what price they have to pay, give them a choice of options. Obviously focus that on the value you're creating and the kind of things that they are likely to value. But yeah, if you give them a choice, they're going to be thinking, which way do I want to work with Ruella? Not will I work with Ruella? So it goes from being a binary yes, no, to actually saying they've almost decided they're working with you already. They're just choosing which way. So that's a super powerful psychological approach.
It's fantastic. Thank you. And Ben, your top tip?
Yeah, it's got to be those service reviews. It's got to be getting in front of your client, eyeball to eyeball, probably over Zoom right now, right? But carving the time out to understand what their experience of working with you. Also, this is a great tool if you've got new consultants, if you've got new hires, get those new hires on these calls as well, so that they can hear firsthand from your clients what you do well and what they like about what you do, because that's going to be the most, I mean, it's brilliant when a new consultant can say, I was talking to one of our clients who's been working for us for years, with us for years, and they said that what they like best about our approach is X, Y, and Z. You're going to win that business.
Perfect. Thank you. I can't thank you both enough. You've given so much incredible content in just 40 minutes, which I really appreciate. I know we get a lot of people watching our replay. All of our videos are now on our YouTube channel under Ruella James. So there will be people watching the replay. And I just want to add, if anyone has any questions, please connect with John and Ben. They are absolutely fabulous at what they do. And I know there are not many people that does what John does in terms of this pricing piece. And Ben is, I just think you're really disrupting the way that we look at getting maximum value out of clients. And I think if anyone wants to connect to you about how you go through those service reviews, which, you know, we probably didn't really do last year, let's be honest. We were not doing the levels of business that we were. I think that's such a powerful, really, you know, simple. We know to do it, but as you said, it gets forgotten. If anyone wants a free one-to-one, whether you watch this now or on the replay or on our YouTube channel, John and Ben are quite happy to do a free consultation. And I think at this time we have covered two really, really important subjects right now, really relevant. Cannot thank you enough. And I look forward to seeing everyone again soon. Thank you. Thank you very much, both of you. And thank you to our audience who've watched us today.
Thanks, Ruella.
Take care. Thank you.